think the key to remote management is over communicating and being really deliberate about spending quality time together and scheduling that in and treating it as important as doing the actual work. That can be very difficult when you've got a really large team, but definitely scheduling meetings, having a coffee chat, not making it about work necessarily. If you invest in the relationship and you schedule time to do work, but also time to relax and get to know each other, that's really, really important. And the other thing as well is don't assume. That is the worst thing you can do, is just assume that just because you've not heard from somebody, they're okay. They might not be. The other thing as well I would say is contracting is really important. Contracting with people when you're managing somebody remotely is saying, look, we're never going to meet probably. I don't know if the organisation's going to fly you over to meet each other, probably not. What you can do is to say, look, this is going to be a constant. How are we going to build really good relationship, high trust relationship? What specific things can we do together in terms of a partnership? It is really hard and really tiring. I much prefer an office-based organisation. I really enjoy the energy of the office, and it makes it much easier to be with people, because when we turn on a camera, we're there to present and put on a front, whereas sometimes you'll see people, they might be laughing about something, or they might be crying in a corner or a bit quieter, and you can pick up on all of these non-verbal cues, and then that's a way of being able to tune into. It's not easy, but it's possible. I'd gone from being an individual contributor to then managing a team of people, and I'd had no management training. And so I had this team of 19, I had 2 contractors and 17 people. So it was huge, this team. I was sat in a pod of desks. My team, one by one, they kept coming up to me during the course of the day saying, I've got this problem, can you take this on for me? And I'd just be taking all of their problems on and just trying to do it all myself. And that felt really overwhelming, actually. I was very lucky that I had an amazing boss, and he was based in Mumbai at the time, but he flew up to Delhi to come and observe me and give me some practical help in terms of how to manage. And the first thing that he said to me was, are you aware that you're sat there taking all of your team's stuff and they're now expecting you to go away and do stuff and you have no capacity or time to be able to do it? I'm actually not aware of that. So heightening my awareness was really, really important. And then he did this really simple thing. He said, right, what's all the stuff that you've got to get done? What are all the tasks? So on one column, we had all the tasks. On the second column, we had all the list of people. And we just did a matching exercise. Who can I give stuff to from my team that's got the competence and the capability and the confidence and the energy, and link it all together. And that was such a transformative moment for me in my management career. It really, really was. They say so simple, but so helpful. Being very specific about what it is that you want them to work on. They're outlining for them what tasks they need to get done, what's the quality standard. And I would actually ask them that question. To what extent do you feel empowered when it comes to doing your work? And what could I do as your manager to make it feel more empowering? Sometimes you get in the way of your team if you're a manager. But what I do is I talk to my team regularly and say, right, how is it for you? Am I being an absolute pain? Or are you getting the right level of support and direction? I just talk to people about it. I think creating that open relationship and high trust relationship is really important. Yeah, I had this when I was working at Barclays, and I had a guy working for me. He was almost nearing retirement. He was definitely like late 50s. Often you'll get these younger managers that will come across as hot shots and they know everything. I just had a really open conversation with him and just said, look, I can see you've been doing this job for years. I just want to make sure we've got a good relationship. How are we going to work together? What do you need from me? And here's what I need from you. What do you need from me? And I just kind of approached it in a very open way. And I have to say, he was one of the best people that I've ever worked with, because he was really avuncular in his style, like really caring. He really looked after me as a young manager, and he wasn't antagonistic, and he was so nice to deal with. But I think talking that through with people is just really powerful. There's an amazing academic. I was really fortunate to spend some time with her a few months ago, called Amy Gallo. She's got a book on it that's really, really useful. And essentially, the essence of it is make sure that you, first of all, mentally prepare for the conversation that you're about to have. So think about what's the time, the setting, the place, what's the strategy, what's the message. I always talk about this idea of headlines. And what's the headline that you want to leave this person with after the conversation? So you think strategically, first of all, about the message. You think mentally about how am I going to get in a good place mentally to be able to keep my composure and have this conversation in a constructive way. I would highly recommend finding someone that you really trust in the organisation or outside of the organisation and having a really good rant and venting your feelings and getting the emotion out, because that's going to really, really help. And then you've got the practical element, which is just think about what's the physical location, time, when are you going to sit down and have this conversation? So I definitely wouldn't do it first thing on a Monday. I wouldn't do it last thing on a Friday. I want to have this conversation with you and leave it 3 days, because people are going to be wondering, well, what is it that you you want to talk to me about. It doesn't feel very nice. So I think those are the three things. Think strategically, mentally get yourself in a good place, and then think practically. Then when you're having the actual conversation yourself, you start off by saying, I'm really glad we've got this time together today. You outline that you've got some common ground with that person. So we both know, I would hope that we want to have a really high quality relationship. We want to do this particular piece of work really well. You're getting their agreement on side. Then what you want to be able to do is to say, I'd really like to share my perspective on that, and I'd really like to hear your perspective on it. And so creating some space there to articulate what is it that you want, but really understand the other person. Because what we tend to do is that we'll go into battle with somebody and we'll just try to push our perspective rather than listen, be curious, empathize, understand their perspective. And then ultimately at the end, it's almost like a sort of dance. And at the end, you should be starting to dance a little bit more sort of synchronized together rather than apart. Can be very difficult. Sometimes you've just got to be direct with people rather than going, I'm trying to softly do this and talk to them and get them on side. And sometimes you just need to tell people, I'm doing this. It's all about the work. It's really important I get updates. Sometimes giving people context as well. It's really important for me to know what's going on so that I can manage my boss properly, so that then the team can be left to get on with their jobs. That's really important. So giving people context and then also being able to, just have a conversation with that person, I think. The takeaway from this is always have a conversation if you feel like you're able to. If you feel like your safety is threatened or whatever, then obviously don't. But if you feel like you can, do it. Be brave and do it.